The first thing people noticed was not the crown or the gown, but the way sadness seemed to cling to the princess like a shadow that refused to let go. It was the kind of sadness that didn't scream or cry, the kind that sat quietly behind the eyes and made the air feel heavier. On that ordinary afternoon, in a place meant for laughter and bright photos, 3 identical little girls stopped walking at the exact same time, their hands still wrapped around their father's fingers, and stared at the princess as if they had stumbled upon a secret the world was trying to hide. Before the story pulls you deeper, take a moment to pause. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of empathy, please like this video, share it with someone who needs hope, leave a comment, and subscribe to the channel. Your support keeps stories like this alive. The man holding the girl's hands was a single father named Daniel, though most people only saw him as another tired parent juggling backpacks, snacks, and the constant hum of responsibility. He had learned to move through life efficiently, conserving energy the way someone does after years of emotional storms. His wife had died suddenly 3 years earlier, leaving him with triplet daughters who were too young to understand why their mother never came back. Since then, Daniel had become everything at once: caregiver, comforter, provider, and the silent holder of grief he never had time to unpack. This trip had taken months of saving, skipped coffees, and late-night overtime shifts, all for the promise of one day where his girls could feel pure magic. The triplet girls were a study in contrasts and sameness. Same wide eyes, same dimples, same habit of finishing each other's thoughts without realizing it. Yet, each carried the loss differently. One was quietly observant, one endlessly curious, and one fiercely protective of her sisters and her father. They had named the princesses they saw in storybooks and movies their imaginary friends during long nights when Daniel fell asleep sitting upright on the couch. Princesses, to them, were symbols of safety, of happy endings, of worlds where pain always resolved into joy. So when they saw this princess, standing still and perfect in her shimmering dress, something felt wrong in a way children sense before adults do. The princess smiled the way she was supposed to, but it didn't reach her eyes. The girls tightened their grip on Daniel's hands, their small bodies leaning toward him, their faces tilted upward with confusion and concern. Their unspoken question hung between them like a fragile glass ornament. Why did someone who looked like a dream seem so heartbreakingly sad? Daniel felt the question before he fully understood it. He followed their gaze and noticed details others passed by without a second thought. The princess's shoulders carried a subtle heaviness. Her posture was practiced, but fatigue peeked through the cracks. Her eyes flickered with something deeper than exhaustion. Daniel recognized it instantly because he saw it every morning in the mirror. It was grief carefully folded and tucked away so the world wouldn't see it spill. Years earlier, Daniel might have brushed past, too consumed by schedules and expectations to stop and notice. But grief had slowed him down, taught him to read the quiet language of sorrow. He knelt slightly, bringing himself closer to the girl's height, and instead of offering a quick distraction or a cheerful lie, he chose honesty wrapped in gentleness. He explained, in a way only a father who had learned hard lessons could, that sometimes people wear beautiful costumes to hide heavy hearts, and sometimes being strong means showing up even when you are hurting. The girls listened with a seriousness far beyond their years. They didn't fidget or interrupt. Something in their father's voice told them this mattered. Daniel went on, describing how even princesses could feel lonely, how sadness didn't mean someone was broken, and how kindness from strangers could feel like sunlight through clouds. He reminded them that they, too, had felt sad and still found ways to smile for each other. What happened next was small in action but enormous in impact. The girls stepped forward together, their movements synchronized the way only triplets could be, and offered the princess something that required no words. It was a drawing, crumpled at the edges from being carried all day, showing a princess with 3 tiny figures holding her hands under a sky filled with uneven hearts. Daniel watched the princess's breath catch, watched the practiced smile falter into something real. For a moment, the world slowed. The princess knelt to their level, her eyes shining now, and placed her hand over her heart in a gesture that spoke volumes. Daniel saw tears gather, not the performative kind, but the ones that come when someone finally feels seen. He learned later, through a quiet conversation with a staff member, that the woman under the crown was named Emily, a college student working double shifts to pay medical bills for her younger brother. She had received news that morning that his condition had worsened. She showed up anyway because responsibility rarely waits for grief to pass. That brief encounter rippled outward in ways none of them could have predicted. Emily carried the drawing with her for the rest of the day, pulling it out during breaks as a reminder that kindness could arrive unexpectedly and change the weight of everything. Daniel's daughters spent the rest of the trip more attentive to the world around them, pointing out when someone looked lonely, asking how they could help. It was as if a door had opened inside them, revealing empathy not as a lesson, but as a lived experience. For Daniel, the moment cracked something open that had been sealed shut since his wife's funeral. He realized he had been teaching his daughters resilience, without realizing they were teaching him how to feel again. Watching them offer comfort without fear reminded him that grief did not have to be hidden to be endured. It could be shared, softened, transformed. In the weeks that followed, life returned to its usual rhythm of school runs, packed lunches, and bedtime stories. But something had shifted. The girls started leaving small notes for their teachers, drawing pictures for neighbors and asking Daniel about his feelings instead of avoiding the subject. Daniel found himself talking about their mother more openly, sharing memories without the sharp sting he once feared. Grief didn't disappear, but it changed shape, becoming something they carried together instead of alone. Months later, a letter arrived in the mail with no return address, just careful handwriting on the envelope. Inside was a photo of Emily holding the drawing, standing beside her brother in a hospital room, both smiling. A short note explained that the drawing had stayed taped to the wall during the hardest days, a reminder that strangers could care deeply and without condition. Her brother was improving, slowly but surely. The kindness of 3 little girls and a father's honest words had given her strength when she thought she had none left. The story might have ended there quietly with gratitude and closure, but life, in its strange generosity, added one more chapter. Daniel began volunteering with his daughters at a local children's hospital, dressing up as characters, reading stories, and sitting with families who needed a break. He didn't wear a crown, but he carried the same purpose he had seen in Emily that day. Showing up mattered. Presence mattered. The girls grew, as children do, but they never forgot the sad princess. Years later, when asked what they wanted to be, their answers shifted and evolved. But one theme remained constant. They wanted to help people feel less alone. Daniel watched them and understood that the greatest inheritance he could give them wasn't protection from pain, but the courage to face it with compassion. As this story draws closer to its end, take a moment to reflect. If this journey moved you, if it reminded you of the quiet power of kindness and the unseen battles people fight every day, please like this video, share it with someone who needs encouragement, and subscribe for more stories that speak to the heart. And before the final moment fades, here's a special request. Comment the word kindness if you believe small acts can change lives. The princess was never just a princess, and the father was never just a tired man with 3 children in tow. They were ordinary people intersecting at exactly the right moment, proving that empathy doesn't require grand gestures, only the willingness to notice and care. In a world that often rushes past quiet pain, sometimes it takes the honest question of a child and the brave response of a single dad to change everything.